Welcome to the Global Spin Podcast with me, Ryan Cramer, where we take a deep dive into the world of global selling and share the secrets to growing your brand in new markets. Whether you're looking to expand your brand, enter new markets, or boost your sales, we've got you covered. Tune in for unscripted, engaging episodes that will take you on a journey of discovery and success. Let's get started. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Global Spin Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Cramer, and this is my corner of the internet where I bring the best, the brightest, and the most exciting people in the Amazon e-commerce and logistics space. Thanks for tuning in today. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast destination, that could be on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, or if you happen to be watching this on YouTube or on our Frisbi website, thanks for spending a little bit of time on tuning into our episode. Today's episode, of course, like every other episode here on the Global Spin Podcast, is brought to you by Frisbi. We're fueled by Frisbi today. We're fueling ourselves and our brands to international growth. That's right. With Frisbi comes growth opportunities unbound, going into different markets like Amazon Canada, Amazon Japan, Amazon in UK and beyond. There's so many opportunities, and we have customers every day who are asking us, where is that next lever for growth? Where can I build my business and my brand moving forward? Frisbi will help answer those questions with shipping, logistics, and port of record. You name it, we're going to help you and your team build into new markets in 2023 and beyond here in the future. That's what we're all about here. If you have questions, go ahead and check us out at frisbi.com/the Global Spin Podcast to see this episode and past episodes and level up your business a little bit with our podcast. That's what we're all here about today. So thank you, Frisbi, and thank you for all of our advocates and listeners here on the Global Spin Podcast. All right, that's enough about me, and let's get into the meat of it. It's been a while since we've opened our airwaves up on the Global Spin Podcast, and what we really like to do is take brands to the next level. We're building your brand into new markets, new strategies, new ways to help get your time back, but also move it your business moving forward. I know me as an executive and looking at a bunch of different channels, it's really tough not to get shiny object syndrome. So how can I best invest my time, my money, and my effort to build my business moving forward? So that being said, I thought there was a really cool story with one of our partners, but also somebody who's new to a company that can provide this amazing kind of insight onto what's really trendy nowadays is having AI build and work for me and helping my business grow. So we titled this episode a little sneaky today, and I think that's going to poke a few ears up today for our listeners. Humans can't run ads like machines can. Interesting concept. So we brought in today the Chief Revenue Officer, newly minted. I'll go ahead and say I'm going to use some financial terms today. Minted Chief Revenue Officer Ben Ray of Teikametrics today to talk a little bit about that. We'll have a little bit of fun later on in this episode about the upcoming trends and insights that they're seeing over there as well. So welcome to the Global Spin Podcast, Ben. Ben, let me go ahead and probably be up here. Welcome to the Global Spin Podcast.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for having me. So happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks. So where are you actually from? I didn't pick up an accent when we were talking pre-show, but where are you on?
Yeah,
East Coast? Where are you at?
Good question. I was born and raised in the suburbs of Chicago, so I have the classic neutral, evening news accent.
Interesting. Okay. What part of Chicago?
Yes. Yeah. So I grew up in a town called Glenview, which is just north of the city. It's like 45 minutes north. Once upon a time, Kraft Foods was headquartered there, but other than that, not really to know much about that town.
Midwesterner myself, was recently in Lafayette, Indiana, which is very close to Chicago, but home of Purdue University. But I am now in Cleveland, Ohio, so still Midwest, still in a very cold part near a lake. So we're basically the same person right now. So just different parts of the country, but yeah, a little bit in the Midwest still. But yeah, very neutral sounding voice. So you're new. Tell me a little bit about your background. So for people who are not familiar with you, or you're not another talking head in the e-com space, you come from really cool background companies like Profit Hero and Brand Watch. But tell me a little bit about your story and how you got to Teikametrics.
Yeah, absolutely. So I live now in Boston. I moved to Boston in about 2007. That was right around the time when Teikametrics was getting going. And so I knew of the company a little bit, and it's kind of part of the Boston scene, but was really at the time early on in my career focused on Brand Watch, which did social media analytics. So looking at platforms like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And, when I first joined the company, Instagram didn't even exist. So it was quite a long time ago.
Do we feel old after saying that out loud?
I do. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I had a great run there. And after that company was acquired, left to go to work for Profitero. And that was really my first intro into the e-commerce space. And they still to this day do market share analytics and digital shelf analytics. And a lot of similarities, actually, believe it or not, to social media, in the sense that, in the early 2010s, social media went from this nascent blog thing all of a sudden into the forefront of everyone's mind. And if you didn't have a Twitter handle, you're like nobody, right? Everyone, their mom was on Facebook, that whole thing. And so when I was looking for another industry to join, I thought well, e-commerce is very similar. I went from this very nascent part of retail all of a sudden to everyone sees these charts that are put out where it just shows the e-commerce penetration just continuing to increase. And I thought that was really interesting. And I thought actually that e-commerce would have a longer tail and a longer lifespan than social did. So I've been in the field ever since. Just been having a blast because I think it's changing the way consumers interact with the world, and it's changing the way companies are able to make money and have a business.
Amazing. That's a great story. So within e-commerce, obviously that kind of spans a lot of different channels. Specifically, the most fascinating one and the kind of the leading one, if you will, is Amazon and selling. So what about this space is most intriguing with data and analytics and numbers? Because I myself am one who likes to look at trends and love looking at articles, and e-commerce obviously continues to skyrocket. We saw that bump in COVID era, but then obviously since then, a lot of things have fallen down from there, but we're still seeing the adoption of buying things online, using it for everyday products, but it hasn't, there's not this humongous market share yet. I think right now there's I'm looking at a statistic right now, and I'm going to share this for all the data nerds out there like myself. US e-commerce sales are growing year over year this year to $1.1 trillion, which is T with the trillion with the T, and it's growing at the lowest rate year over year, 7.5% since 2013. So we were talking about that span you were talking about from before. Is that something that is insightful to you? What do you take of a number that says, "Hey, we saw that spike. It's still projecting to continue to rise, and we're seeing revenue grow with e-commerce sales"? What is that? What does those numbers say to you, or say
Yeah.
when you hear that for the first time?
Yeah, I think the whole world is trying to figure out what do we do post pandemic, and what do any numbers mean anymore. I think we look at our own economy in the U.S. and it's things like low unemployment, high inflation. That doesn't make any sense. The Feds are trying to figure out what to do with it. I don't even think they know what are the right tools that they have. The tools that they have are 20 years old, 50 years old, and I think e-commerce is the same way. We saw this huge spike when we were all trapped in our houses and couldn't leave, especially in parts outside the US that had much stricter lockdown policies. And so now I think we're coming out of it and we're like, okay, well, what are things we want to buy in brick and mortar? What are the things we want to buy in e-commerce? Before the pandemic, for me, shoes was the hard and fast line. I was like, I would never buy shoes online. I was like, I have to feel the shoe. I have to get into it. And then when the pandemic hit, I still needed shoes to leave the house once in a while.
Yeah.
And so I bought a bunch of shoes. I tried some on, I returned it, and I was like, okay, this is how you do it. And so I think people are still trying to sort out as consumers what their preference is. I will say, however, is that I think what is going to shake out over the next couple of years, besides my perspective that e-commerce will continue to eat up the market share for retail, is attribution. Particularly in this world of omni-channel. What that means is I know whenever I walk into a Target or a Walmart or a grocery store, whatever one it may be, is that I simultaneously shop with my phone open, whether it's a simple thing to just figure out what aisle the product's in, or it's more complex to say, oh, well, okay, so it's not in this store, but it's that store over, or I could just order it now and deliver it to my home. Or even more challenging, especially for companies like Walmart or Target, is hey, it's actually cheaper on Amazon, and it's like same day delivery because I live in Boston, the metro area, so a lot of same day delivery options. So it's like, okay, well, I can pay more here and walk out now, or I can order it now and have it delivered by 5 p.m. today. And so I still think that omni-channel shopping with your phone while you're in the aisle, I don't think that we figured out what to do with that yet.
Yeah, of recency, I know, like with Home Depot, or at least the features that they're touting, right? Where is this located in the store? And it's really a pain in the butt when you have so much inventory, you're trying to find it, but it starts with a profile. Like again, this is the marketing and the analytics side of things. When people are searching for these kind of products, you can tie back to a profile, know what ads to serve them later on, and then obviously if there's a coupon or a discount or even a mailer or email that you can focus and put in front of them, it's going to provide what kind of customer profile this is in real time. And that's really crazy to think about in a store when you're walking down these aisles and trying to find it. Do you see these pop-up things that say, hey, you can get this cheaper if you ship it to your house or something crazy like that? But it's a world that we're all still trying to figure out of how to mesh retail and online at the same exact time. When there's a convenience to buying online, obviously you don't have to leave your home, but then
Yeah.
and there might be a cost savings, but people still need to touch and feel the things that are in their lives. So how's that play into let's go into how most Amazon sellers or e-commerce sellers are transitioning in the world and making an impact in their sales and their lives, and that is with ads. I know at Teikametrics, and I know there's lots of great companies out there that really want to put a brand in front of that searcher or that person who's searching for that product. How's that impacting now, especially when you say, hey, don't take it to this expert or this guru's word for it. Maybe AI can get through the narrow or the crud that they might suggest, and really cut down to the core of it and be smarter about running ads.
Yeah, I think one thing to mention before we get into it, which is
Sure.
this is something I think Amazon has done a great job with, and I think Walmart is attempting to either copy or leapfrog them with similar motions. But it's just how easy it is to become a seller on Amazon, particularly for a third party seller, right? You figure out what products you want to sell, and then Amazon basically has a total turnkey solution with fulfillment by Amazon, with the advertising in the console. They announced at Amazon Accelerate that they now offer ways to help you get your listings set up very rapidly just by putting in a few keywords. They'll generate the listings for you. And I know Walmart is doing the exact same thing. They have an incubator program where they will help you get your listings up, get you connected to WFS, which is their fulfillment services.
Mhm.
And so the really exciting thing is that if you're an everyday person, maybe you and your spouse want to start a company, or you are in college and you want to start a company, or whatever the situation may be, you want to escape the 9 to 5, is it's very easy to start and to sell online, which is awesome. That's like the core of the American entrepreneurial spirit, right? The challenge, of course, is that it's made it so easy, is that the market has become very, in some areas, oversaturated. And so it's really challenging to continue to grow at the rate you've been growing at, or continue to grow, period, without some sort of advertising, right? And so you've got this need to advertise, A, and then B, particularly on Amazon, it becomes overwhelming because, as I'm sure many of your listeners know, is that the bids change every hour. So it's an hourly bidding game, 24/7. It's not like at 3 in the morning, the bids stop changing,
Mhm.
or on holidays, the bids are the same. Everything changes hour by hour. A, and then B, the other challenge is when you set your ROAS or ACoS targets, basically what your return on ad spend is. You have to figure out, each SKU is going to have a different target, right? So if you have one SKU that may be at this price point with a profit margin that's X, could be totally different than another SKU that's a profit margin of Y. And so the ultimate challenge, which is why I think AI can do it better than humans, is that you have to run, hour by hour, SKU by SKU, with updating all of your bids every hour and updating all of your ROAS targets potentially every hour too, depending upon where you are in your inventory and all those other marginal challenges. And so, frankly, that is like a ridiculous ask of any human, right? Because it's like, hey, Don't take a vacation, and don't you dare take a vacation during Black Friday. Don't you dare take a day off on Cyber Monday. And how dare you the weeks before Christmas relax? Like, impossible. And then don't even think about it in July. You thought maybe July you could take a vacation. Well, not anymore, because that's Prime Day. And then, okay, well, what about, back to school? Don't you dare take a vacation then. And then there's Big Deals Day. And so anytime you think you maybe don't want to be running your ads 24/7, you actually will find a reason as a small business owner to be like, no, I have to stay locked in to run my ads. And so that presents a really big challenge that I think AI has a powerful way to help solve that.
So at what point is human touch going to be out surpassing AI? Because when I don't want to take people down the wrong road and say like, hey, set it, forget it, let's never touch
Totally.
it again. Um, that's an important distinction here that I think we should make for everyone and say there's a component, and I'm hearing what you're saying, Ben, is there is a time equity that you get back when you incorporate tools in general. Same with Frisbi, same with Teikametrics. When you incorporate tools that are smart for your business growth, like AI, like simplifying the process, because you're getting your time back, your money and equity back, so you can manage other aspects of your life, not just your business.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like what is the tipping point? What do humans still need to do? And this is like we did a webinar last week about a new release we had, and inside the webinar, I had our head of data science was on the call, a guy with a PhD in data science and a very smart person. Then I had our head of strategy, who at one point managed our premium services team, and now does a whole host of other things. And so it's almost like a head-to-head confrontation, if you will, of like, the people can do it. No, the machines can do it. No, the people can do it. And the answer is, frankly, at this point in time, it's both, right? There are certain tasks that are really good that the people can do. And then there are certain tasks that the AI, just frankly, because of large amounts of data, is better at. And so our real value prop at Teikametrics, and I would say not just Teikametrics, but any company that has advanced technology, I think everyone is saying that at this point in time, you need both. And you need someone with industry or ad expertise or whatever it may be your field is to help guide what the machine or what the technology is doing. And I'm sure
Mhm.
similarly at Frisbi too, you probably have a whole host of really smart technology, and you still have the humans who are going to help do the guiding. A phrase we use at Teikametrics is a Sherpa, someone who can help guide someone up the path.
Yep.
If you
I like
will.
that. Yeah, we're the Sherpas of the ecom world. That's for sure. So, getting up,
Yeah,
everyone else gets the glory. You hike before us. We're just here to make sure you don't fall down and you don't go down that mountain anywhere. We'll do the heavy lifting for you. So, I like that phrase. You made an interesting distinction as well, that when people are looking for growth and they're saying, hey, it's like humans can do it or machines can do it. I think about the components of, again, we're all trying to get time, money, or effort into our business, and where do we get the most lift from this?
right.
When we say that Amazon has made it a little more difficult in terms of like, especially when it comes to starting your business or growing your business, how do I continue to stay ahead of the curve, and how do I continue to invest my money smartly? I'm curious on your standpoint. Is Amazon making sellers, is ads or as making advertisements or doing PPC in general, or however you want to spend money into Amazon advertising, does that become part of your business cost? Now it's not an enhancement. I don't have the luxury of it. It has to be part of my cost of doing business, period. End point.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we have a slide that we often use when we do industry events where we talk to potential customers or existing customers that shows the percent of your business that Amazon takes, and it goes all the way back to like I think like 2013 or 2010. It goes pretty far
Sure.
back, and obviously, as you would expect, Amazon is taking more of your business now than they were in 2010 or 2013. And included in that chart is, to your point, is advertising, because that is, you can't really be on Amazon these days without advertising. And this kind of goes back to a previous point where I would say everyone who's in the world of e-commerce has a love-hate relationship with Amazon. It just like is what it is. And I would say if anyone who tells you that they either love or hate Amazon, they're just they're just saying these words. This actually isn't true, right? You got to love them because they've made it so easy to sell online. They've given you so many tools to make it easier to sell. The very fact that you can, like I said earlier, like start from nothing and be online in, well, after you get validated, that's a whole thing. But once you're validated as a seller and you're online, like it's pretty easy to get going. So that's like the love part. The hate part is at the end of the day, Amazon is a corporation that is seeking to grow its margins and its profits. And just like any other business, including all of our customers, that's what they're doing too. So no hate to Amazon for that. But at the end of the day, that's their goal. And a primary way they do that is to, take money from the sellers as their customers. And they have to pay for all the wonderful services they offer. So I get it. But I think that's kind of the tension that you have. And so it's a long-winded answer of saying like, yes, 100%, you have to advertise if you're on Amazon. Same thing if you're on Walmart. Same thing if you're on TikTok. Any of these new marketplaces, advertising is just baseline the way you sell.
That makes sense. So I know that part of doing business and you want to stand out. I'm curious from a technology standpoint, maybe you can answer this question. Amazon, like how it's noted out there that with AI, everyone can kind of see the cadences, how AI speaks or how it kind of conceptualizes data, right? It's getting prompts, it puts together information and it creates that results. It's the output. Will Amazon is there a distinction between an output of what AI creates or optimizes versus the output of what a human can create as well? And does Amazon distinguish either of those two outputs? Can it see any of those two outputs, or does it distinguish those two outputs separately and reward one versus the other? Is there any insight that you guys have seen or know of?
I love it. I think what would be actually helpful if I could like step back for a second and talk about the different types
Yeah,
of
be
AI,
great.
because I feel like there's 1,000 types, and I think people use the term AI to basically mean whatever you want to. Like if you don't know like what to say, like just call it AI and
Yeah,
you'll be
Ben,
better.
I'm a big
Right?
dummy over here in my corner of the internet. So all I do is just ask the questions and then they come pop in my head. So however we need to present this, I hope there's other people out here who are listening and see this too, because AI has become a catchphrase. It's just the same like the
100%.
advertising or digital marketing. What does that really mean? Like how does here in end of 2023 as of this recording, how do we continue to use the phrase AI and how do we apply those different metrics, get more granular and build it towards my business? So I'll let you take it
Yeah.
from there then.
Great question. So when I think about AI, and I think a lot of people think about it this way, I think of basically four main types of AI, and I'll kind of talk about each one and give an example. So like the first type of AI is what I would call reactive AI. And so basically it's like a scenario is presented to you previously when the same scenario has been presented to you. If you make this action, like then you'll get an outcome, right? And the most famous example of this is IBM Blue and IBM Watson. A lot of those technologies. You think about the very first time that AI came is when the machine beat the human chess player, right?
That's right.
And now in reality, that AI wasn't very complicated. Basically, what the programmers did is they fed it every single scenario so that when a human made a move, an AI would simply do a calculation to say, out of all the options I have, if I make this move, this gives me the best chance of winning the game. And it would just do that over and over
And
again.
if this, then this statement. Yep.
Correct, 100%. If this, then that, and it could just do it faster than a human, and all of the possibilities were inside its programming. So that's reactive AI. Oldest AI, still used a lot, but very helpful. It's used quite a bit if there's any sort of like rule-based systems. So some advertisers will do rule-based advertising, min, max bids, things like that. So still used quite a bit. The second one, and this one has been all the rage very recently, is what's called generative AI. And so generative AI essentially will produce something new, right? And so there's two main types of generative AI. And if you are on Reddit, you've seen 1,000 of these over the last year. There's image based, so like a mid journey where you say like, hey, here's all you can give it prompts. You can say like, create an image of there's all these ones for different
A
countries.
Dolly or a Midjourney.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Dolly. So they're like, my favorite one is like the cats by country. So what will a cat look like in America versus a cat in Russia versus like a cat in Brazil? And they've got all these silly outfits or whatever. But yeah, you're basically giving it some prompts and it looks through its library and then it creates something new. The
Interesting.
more famous one is ChatGPT, where you kind of give it a prompt, say like, "Hey, write me a poem in the voice of this from this time period," yada yada yada. And what ChatGPT does is it looks at all its text it's ingested, finds examples of that, and creates something new based on the examples it already has. So reactive, there's nothing new. It's just pulling from a list. Generative, it does new stuff, but it only does new text or new images.
Hmm.
Okay. The third would be computer vision, and this would be a combo of the other two, but hyper focused on images. So the most famous of this is Tesla, like the Tesla autopilot, the Tesla driving, the Tesla, like, when it sees a traffic cone on the road, it basically sees something, it recognizes what it already was, and then it like decides to recommend an action based on what it's seen, right?
A learning-based model, yeah.
A learning-based model, and it's usually focused on images, right? The fourth one, and this is the last one, so don't worry, there's no more after this. So this one is the one that I think is most compelling, and this is what we think of when we think that that the machines are going to take over the world. And this is like predictive AI. So it can predict what is going to happen next, and then it does the thing before it does it. And what you have to do is you basically have to combine the other forms of AI into it. I guess there's a fifth one. The fifth one is like general awareness. And this is when the robots are like doing everything by themselves, which is the scary
Yeah,
one.
human choice and
Yeah,
free
right.
will, things
That's
of that sort. Yeah.
right. Terminator style, which
Put an asterisk next to that because it's not happening, right? We have to speak into this since it's not happening.
right.
We're not gonna worry about that.
We're not going there. And I think I read this week that some senior researchers at Google came out and said we're even farther away from it than we thought. So sigh of relief for everybody.
Oh, thank God.
Which is good. Yeah. But the predictive AI one is the one that's most compelling to me. And this is actually an area where Teikametrics is doing a lot of exploration, which I can talk about if that's helpful. But I think it's helpful to have like a language of like what type of AI you're talking about. And
Yeah.
so when we think about for sellers, you're going to use different types of AI in different scenarios, right? So if you want to update your listings, you want to change the bullets, you want to change the images, that's a great example of generative AI, right? Like ChatGPT or whoever it is. I know Amazon has released some generative AI. Teikametrics has released some as well, but we will actually recommend keywords for you in your bidding strategy. This is like using ChatGPT or using some sort of generative AI technology. Super helpful. If you want to predict when you're out of inventory, that's like predictive AI, where it's saying like based on previous models and based on how the world is changing, out of stock rates, shipping costs, whatever it may be, this is where we think your inventory is going to be. And so there's about 1,000 uses for it. You just have to pick the right AI for the different need you may have.
Interesting. See, I think breaking it down makes me feel a lot better in terms of like, hey, how do we conceptualize, and if the statements are like you said, it's teaching you or it's reactive. In that capacity, how does Amazon look at? Again, I want to go back to our kind of our main point, which
Yeah.
I want to make. As an Amazon seller, and knowing many of them out here that are listening to this, or an e-commerce seller, there's a lot of skepticism in terms of like Amazon is always going to want a data point, and they're going to pull a data point to either get in a plus column or a minus column, right? Plus columns are, hey, bump it up that list, make sure people are visible. Hey, it's more sales. Plus column if it's done well and it's A plus content. Plus column, all these different components. I know advertising is a component of it. There's no data or research. It's all feeling right now of, hey, the more I spend, the smarter the ad, the hey, the image is correct. It's the
Right.
image the meta tag within the image speaks to what they're searching for. Therefore, I need to get that in the plus column. Is AI going to fill or almost talk to Amazon's algorithm, which is again essentially AI?
Yep.
Is it going to speak to it in a good or a bad way, or we haven't quite got there yet? How it's going to be responsive in terms of, hey, in terms of advertising in this realm, this ad is going to be pushed towards the top because it's hitting those check marks because of what Amazon's algorithm saying it wants in these components.
That's a great question. If I can complicate it just one step further,
Please do.
is unfortunately is every single marketplace, their algorithm is actually quite different for
Yeah.
search. And I know Profiteero still to this day puts out a wonderful benchmark report where they look at what different components impact organic search results. And so you have some marketplaces where images matter a lot, other marketplaces where images matter a little bit, but actually reviews are the main driver of their organic returns. And then you have somewhere like Amazon where actually your advertising actually impacts your organic results. So there's a bit of like a pay to play model on within the world of Amazon. And so because of that, I think I'll say one quick thing about metrics, and I'll jump into your question is we really believe that tacos is like the right metric on Amazon, which for anyone who doesn't know is total advertising cost of sale and takes into account your organic and your paid, because at least on Amazon, not every marketplace, but on Amazon in particular, the two are hyper related. And so if you don't advertise enough, your organic search actually like takes a hit. But in terms of understanding how that works for Teikametrics and I think any companies, you want to make sure that the companies you're working with, whatever you're doing for your advertising, takes into account all these different search results and search rankings, which is why I think it's really important to think holistically about advertising. Because if you are driving a whole bunch of people to your page, but your PDP is terrible, your price 2x higher, and maybe you don't have any stock or you have only 2 items left in stock, like
Yep.
all those things are interrelated to your advertising strategy. So I think it's really unhelpful to put advertising out on this island by itself because it really has to be connected to the whole way you think about the funnel and conversion rates.
Right. Amazon wants people to convert. And if, again, going back to inventory, if you don't have enough regionally or locally or wherever the search is happening, it's not going to get more sales from that. Therefore, it's going to bump it down the list. They'd rather
Right.
have healthy inventory levels. The spend, like you said, if there's a lot of people and it's the organic rank just doesn't support it, but people are buying at a rate, like you wanted to make sure that it's up there and that the conversion rate, as always, this is what we did back in Viral Launch when I came from this is when you do 100% paid traffic or outside traffic going and purchasing and leaving a review, you go from 100%. Well, you can't go higher than 100%. If the conversion rate is 100%, you get to 95% conversion rate. Shoot, you dropped 5%. Amazon says that's not good. Therefore, we have to bump you down because you're not relevant anymore. You were at 100, now you're at 95. That all feeds it together too. So complicating our point even more.
Yep.
All these data points are kind of skew it together in this big pot that is Amazon and making it even more complicated, which is why I'm assuming AI is going to help give these insights, correct?
Yeah, well, I think this is why, we've seen over the last 10 years in particular, this huge flourishing of boutique e-commerce agencies, right? It's because what a lot of these sellers realized is they were like, well, okay, this feels very complicated and I don't feel like I can do this by myself. And so the market responded and was like, yeah, you're right. Why don't we hire these expert people who all they do 8 hours a day is advertising? And so all these boutique agencies popped up and we work with a lot of them. I love them. So no, like there's nothing
Shout
bad
out to
about
the boutique agencies. Exactly.
yeah, they responded to the market. They created a booming business, and here we are. A decade later, we've got a ton of boutique agencies, and almost everybody, once you get to a certain scale, is outsourcing the management of their advertising. Um, Frankly, because you need an expert, you need someone who can dedicate 8 hours plus a day to doing the same thing over and over again. So that was like phase one, which is great. And I think we're entering into phase two, whereas we're realizing that, okay, the humans are great, love the humans, but like we actually feel like there's actually so much data that we need a machine to do it one level better. And I would say there's kind of two areas where humans can do it better, not for everything. I'm sorry, where machines can do it better, not for everything, but for two areas in particular. So the one factor that we think about at Teikametrics, and this isn't just Teikametrics, lots of people think about it this way, but it's thinking about what is the ideal bid. And so the ideal bid is important is because when you bid on a search term, you bid on a display ad, a sponsored, whatever it may be, if you like, there's a margin level. And if you overbid on it, even if you win that placement and you win the sale, you're going to be underwater in terms of your margin. And so you've got to figure out, like, if here's your profit line, and sorry for everyone on audio, but I'm drawing a line in the
Yeah.
on the video. Basically, like one level below it is where you want your ideal bid to be so that you can maximize your revenue without becoming unprofitable. And in the Teikametrics, we believe there's kind of three factors that will drive you to it. So one is your average order value, the second is your conversion rate, and the third is your ACOS or ROAS target. You multiply those three things together, basically you get your ideal bid. And so the average order value is fairly easy to calculate. The two that are really challenging is how do you predict your conversion rate before it happens? Like, I wish I knew what my conversion rate was at 4 p.m. today, right? Don't
Yeah.
know that yet. That's in the future. And the second is what is my right ACOS or ROAS target per campaign per SKU? And that's actually not impossible to predict. It's just too much work to do by a single person.
Yeah.
And so at Teikametrics, where we use AI, is we can predict your conversion rate before it happens, taking into account things like seasonality, day of the week, price point, ad type, all of that stuff. A. And then B is if a customer tells us, hey, for this SKU, we're launching it, or we want to grow profitably, or we're looking to liquidate it because our inventory is stale. Once they tell us what their goal is, we can actually recommend what your ACOS or ROAS target is. So that way we can help you guarantee that all of your bids are going to be profitable. And so that's where I think where we as an industry are going to start to see the technology come in. Is like, what is really hard to do? Well, I can't predict my conversion rate before it happens. Technology. What is really hard to do? Well, I don't know what my right ROAS target should be. Like, technology. I think where it's a little more challenging is like, well, what is my campaign structure going to be? What is my campaign setup going to be? That still feels like it needs a human element to it. And so I think that's where we're still trying to figure out what is good for humans and what is good for technology.
Yeah. And taking it even a step further, I would think that the data points that you guys would venture on and what people are even asking us are, hey, localization, where is my customer profile gonna be not just in one country, but globally? And I know Amazon has announced their the product guidance tool, which is a hey, here's other marketplaces that based upon your SKUs and based upon your keywords and your success, what you're currently doing, hey, take a look at these 7 shiny new objects over here and say, there's more opportunity here. There, all these data points start to compile of, hey, you figured out one really big component. Let's stack up 5 more next to it. And then that might make up a margin that 10% here, 15% growth here. Like there's all these growth marginal opportunities
Yeah.
as you start to add on these pieces together, where if we're just stagnant in one area and we're just relying on, again, just the product, the launching ecosystem of like, hey, here's a new release of a new product or an iteration, or I'm going to advertise to maybe even be unprofitable and really just try to keep my share of voice.
Yep.
That's not sustainable as a business. Easy businesses go out of they go bankrupt because of it. So
Right.
all these components, I would think, yeah, one person can't just spend the time or money or effort. I'm going to keep saying that phrase over and over until everyone on
Yeah.
the show is sick of it.
Yeah.
Where you spend your time, money, and effort, you have to be smart. You have to put it into objects or services that are going to elevate your business profitably.
Love it. I'll give you one kind of wish list item on my end that I wish the marketplaces would help us to figure out. This is for Amazon, Walmart, eBay, TikTok, Target, Home Depot, like you name it. None of them are doing it.
Yeah.
So this is like a wish list to them. So each of these different marketplaces we know attract different types of consumers,
Hmm.
right? The Walmart consumer is probably going to be different than the Whole Foods consumer. And so
100%.
like we know these things, we know that your assortment, different SKUs are going to perform better. And then let's take for your business, for instance, at Frisbi, like the products that are going to perform on Japan's Amazon versus Germany's Amazon versus the US Amazon storefronts are also all going to be pretty different, right? Different cultures, different consumers, etc. And so what I would love is if there was a technology or if there was some sort of recommendation for assortment to say, hey, look, we know your catalog is these 100 SKUs. We feel like these, SKUs 2, 5, and 7 are going to perform really well on US Amazon storefront. SKUs 7, 9, and 12 are going to perform great in Japan. And, SKUs 99, 100 perform great everywhere. And so if you could know before you listed your SKUs, which ones are going to perform best on Walmart versus Target versus Home Depot versus Wayfair versus Amazon, that would take like so much of the guesswork out. And my assumption is that all these marketplaces actually have that data. They actually know like what SKUs perform well on it. They just have chosen for whatever reason, and maybe they will release something in the future. They've chosen not to release this like assortment recommendation engine. But I feel like if sellers could get a sense of like, hey, we know what sells really well, and in my catalog, these are the right items, it would make like your first like 6 months so much better in these marketplaces. Or anytime you launch a product, you're like waiting with bated breath. It'd be great if there's some sort of like benchmark data to be like, yeah, you know what, this product is going to work really, really well on this marketplace.
I agree with you there, Ben. I think that this product guidance tool that a lot of I've been shouting from the rooftops. This is really cool information. This is the first time you're seeing behind the curtain that Amazon is sharing marketplace data across the board, across different countries, and it's kind of dumbing it down for a consumer to say like we get every single day. I don't know which marketplace to enter or if it's going to be profitable or hey that was a crapshoot. Like I love seeing how it's unfortunate when they say like I wish I would have known that I would not have been successful or I wish I would have known that I would have been this successful
Right.
earlier on. Either way, I think that's just information that if it was available, and I think this is the beginning of it, the
I
more
agree.
information you have, clearly you can sway all these different ways. But if we can compile it, we can make it smarter for sellers and then expand it quicker. I think that's a lot for a lot of sellers in marketplaces, to be quite frank. That solves their problem of how do we get these products and goods and how do we get our revenue up across the board on all these places as fast as possible.
Yeah.
That is the key and the golden nugget I think that we can take away from today is yes, it is important to consolidate, but also have this information so that we can make smarter choices and it can we're all speedboats here. Lots of sellers are speedboats. We want to pivot quickly if a wave is coming our way so we don't get, overtaken. Not as
Yep.
many big retail brands or consumer brands are that fortunate. They just have to kind of like power through it and make their learnings that hurt that much more. Um, but yeah, that'd be cool to see that
Yeah.
sort of
And I
ecosystem grow and build.
absolutely, to tie it kind of all the way back to the beginnings, I think this is really the role of AI. The role of AI is to say like, hey, a wave's coming over here, or like no waves over here. Double down on this. And so I think we a lot of times we have these big data problems, and the big data problems is exactly where we can plug AI in to make that recommendation.
Absolutely.
And so I think that that's going to be the future. Is as we get more of this large data set, we apply these AI models on top is we should start to have very clear recommendations, which should make sellers feel a lot more confident when making a decision, knowing, hey, I'm making this decision. There's all this data. The AI has crunched the data, and there's a very good chance the AI is right. And so I'm going to go with this predictive decision.
That's a good point. And Ben, I know we're wrapping up on time. I have a couple quick kind of notes here that made me think about it as kind of in the show on a high note and a little bit of fun note. We're going into there's a phrase I was told this year, and Amazon kind of like leads the way in this component that it was called in the past this time of year. Again, it's called Turkey Five or
Okay.
the 5 days kind of Thanksgiving, you go around the weekend, you go around that bend and you hit, I think Tuesday or Cyber Monday would be considered the natural element of that being the end. I heard 11 days this year. They're calling it the Turkey 11, or they called it the Turkey 5. Now it's 11 days. So
Yeah.
we're talking about data sets and components. It was the Friday of this past recording, so we're in the midst of it right now leading up to Thanksgiving. Is there a component that this is just like every year we get these Prime Day was just one day. Now Prime Day is 2 days. Like we're just
Yeah.
multiplying each of these like core days. It used to be just Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Now we're take 2 days. Now we're at 11 all of a sudden. I'm struggling as both an expert in our field, but also as a consumer. Is there a point that we can't maximize that data anymore? It's like we hit a cap, and like
Yeah.
then it makes it like not as desirable or not as profitable anymore. Where are we going with all this? Where's
Yeah.
this
When
predictive
is the
AI going to
craziness
lead
going
us?
to end? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's super interesting because we did a after the October Prime days, the deal days, we released a prediction that we were going to see anywhere from 45 to 55% increase for Turkey 11, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
right? But what we don't know is that, like, is that 50% going to be condensed to a few days? It's going to be spread out all 11 days, or is it going to be even higher because there's extra days? Or are people just going to spread out their shopping? I know, at least in my household, we're not planning on buying other things. We just have less of a like reason to buy it on a particular day. So,
Yeah.
the deals are spread out, right? Um, and so I think at some point, yeah, the madness has to stop. It's not going to be like at some point Turkey 30. And we're going to have a whole month of it. But what's really interesting to me, this is what I don't know, and this is kind of back to an earlier conversation we had about like how do we think about the world post pandemic, is right now with the economy so strange, is we've got these group of people who like have a little bit of extra money that they want to spend on. They only want to spend it if the deal is right, because they're not flush with the cash they used to be flush with. So they're not necessarily like hurting in the way that they may have been in other economies, but they're also not feeling so great, with the mortgage rate so high and you can't buy a house or a car, but you have some money. And so I wonder if this like expansion of deal days is kind of unique to this like 2023, 2024 economy where people have some money, but they're really price conscious. We've kind of phrased the term price conscious splurger, which is like, I think, a helpful phrase. I also want to throw up in my mouth a little bit when I hear it, but it's like, I think that's the reality of where we are. And so I think I'm really interested to see what they do in 2024. If the economy is back to where it was pre-pandemic and we're feeling better, maybe we don't need as many deal days, or maybe now we're addicted to the drug and the deal days are here to stay. I don't know, but yeah, I hope 11 is the max we get to.
I think so too. I mean, to a component, you're just watering down what is being, which was already fabricated as this is the time of year when again, Black Friday is an established holiday where retail stores
Right.
mainly made the most of their money and profited at the end of the year. They were in the red all the way up to this traditionally component of part of the year, and then everything else is gravy after that. That's led into just a deal's not a deal if it's not actually, the value of it as of one point, now it's dropped. That is by definition a deal. A lot of sellers, I know what we see is there's just it's a inflated, fabricated holiday, if you will, that no one
Yeah.
has to discount as much anymore. You don't even see like the 70 to 80% offs now. You just say like, oh, it's a 30% off instead of 25. Like, cool,
Right.
that's great. It's a deal, but it's not as much of a familiar deal that we've seen in past years. So I don't know. I don't know what to think of it. It's not sparked an emotion in me as a consumer to just go out and run to the next Best Buy that I see down the road, and it's like, oh my gosh, we got to go today. Well,
Right.
I got 11 days now. I'm gonna take my flipping time. Like that's hard. That's hard for predictive analysis to know like when your shoppers
Absolutely.
are gonna happen. So
Well, yeah,
I'm
and the
yeah,
hardest part is it changes every year. So if we're like, hey, it's Turkey 11, it's 11 for the next 5 years, great. We've got a really nice data set we
yeah.
can work with. But every time that changes, it makes it harder to predict the next year.
So yeah, what's our prediction from the Teikametrics team and the
Yeah,
team
so
there?
our
What's that?
prediction, our prediction is that over the entire 11-day period, because we don't know, again, we don't know what this expansion is going to mean, but we're going to see between 45 to 55% increase in consumer spending. And this is on track to what we've seen in other areas. And this is year over year, I should say. So
Mhm.
from Turkey 5 last year to Turkey 11 this year is going to see a 45 to 55% increase. And so we've seen that those similar increases from Prime Day to Prime Day, from Deal Day to Deal Day, those October days, and as well in Walmart data, very similar changes, increases. The other factor is Amazon is really dialed in. They have their own predictive modeling. They obviously don't share that because they're a public company, and that would not be good if they mess that up.
No,
But what we do know is their hiring of seasonal workers is generally very well connected to their sales, right? You need more seasonal workers. You don't want to
right.
be running at a loss. So you hire just enough so that you're still profitable, but you can handle the volume so consumers aren't upset. And they had the highest number of seasonal workers they ever hired in the history of the company was for this season.
Well, it's the
So
number I know. 250 was in prior years, but is there a number that people can know or kind of like feel good about?
like what is the
What's the
total
number
number?
of expected seasonal workers that they've hired?
Oh, I think I do know it was higher. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I do know it was higher than it's ever been before.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's just US, or is that globally
That's
across
US
all
only.
brand?
That's
Okay.
US only.
Yeah. So, and I know, plans earlier this year that they've announced for more marketplace expansion too. That's a good indicator that, hey, growth is back on track. They did pause that for a couple of years. Um, now that South Africa is in play for another marketplace to be an expansion option too, that's a key indicator for us as a company,
Yeah.
but also Amazon sellers to say, like, there is other markets to be conquered. Yes, we take
Yep.
over, the top 20 right now, but there is
Yeah.
other marketplaces and pieces of the pie to really take on. So seasonal workers, that's an interesting
Yeah, I
statistic
did I
to
did pull the
to
number up, so it's 100,000 more than it was last year.
100.
And
Okay,
Target is 100,000 more than last year as well. So
interesting.
both are predicting an increase.
Wow. So I mean, those are also interesting numbers to kind of take. Hopefully, I know a lot of sellers are seeing good numbers for this year, and a lot of the components, that's the telltale sign. Hopefully, that makes everyone's Q4 very exciting, and we can start the new year off on a good note. Kind of with that, what's kind of the next things that you guys at Teikametrics are working on? I'll give you kind of like 30 seconds to say like what you
Yeah.
guys are doing at this time for customers.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so beyond the advertising, which I think we've been known for quite a while in the market, particularly for 3P sellers, a whole host of 1P large brands as well, is that we're actually gonna be releasing an inventory prediction tool coming into December. And so we're not gonna be doing the whole inventory management. There are great companies who do that. That's not an area Teikametrics is likely to ever get into. But what we do see is we see a need to predict when you're going to be out of stock.
Hmm.
And so we're releasing a product in late December that's going to be focused on, we'll be able to tell you 6 months in advance when you'll either be out of stock or have a surplus of stock, stagnant stock. The unique part about that is that one is we've been collecting out of stock data for the past 7 years. So we've got a whole host of really rich data set, A, and then B is one of the main drivers for driving demand is advertising. And so we have all this advertising data as well. So between those two data sets, we feel like we can get to a very predictable model. And our real goal is to drive this advertising. So I said earlier about how it's important that we're a holistic advertising company. We're not going to get into a whole side business of inventory management. We're really focused on advertising. But it's like, how awesome would it be is if you get a notification that you're going to be out of stock and then your advertising is automatically turned off for those out of stock or low stock items. That's going to save you a whole bunch of money. You don't have to decrease your budget. Your budget automatically shifts into the items that are fully in stock that are performing well. Another example of the AI power is that we can automatically shift budget from out of stock or low stock items to in stock items that are performing well, and really again help to drive those profit margins for our customers.
That's awesome. That's really cool, and I think it's helpful to understand here where there's growth opportunities. And like you said, every dollar helps, and especially when we're all fighting margins and referral fees go up with Amazon. You have to find out how to make up the difference in other places too, whether it be expanding into markets or having tools that help you reshift, allocate funds and resources to different things that are going to make more money, and you don't have to do it manually sometimes. So that's always a good
Absolutely.
positive nature. So, Ben, thank you so much for hopping on the Global Spin podcast today. Any other parting words that you can, or people, how they can reach out to you if they have any questions, or the team there, how can they reach out to you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So the two best ways, if you want to reach out to me personally, LinkedIn is probably the best. You can find me on LinkedIn. And then if you want to reach out to Teikametrics, you can go to teikametrics.com, and that way you can request a demo to see an in-depth look at the product, or you can even start a free trial and start using the tool that way. And then we're happy to jump in and help you, give you more of a guided tour once you do that. But yeah, we're here to help. Our goal is to help sellers be as successful as possible. I've worked for a lot of large companies where we're focused on the Fortune 100 brands, and it's great to see them have a record-breaking year. But what really gets me up in the morning is helping those sellers who are trying to put their kids through college by running a successful business that resonates with how I was brought up. My dad was a small business owner. He put me through college because he worked hard and he had himself and two other employees, and like that was it. And so that really resonates with me. And that's why I love Teikametrics, is we're here trying to make the American dream come true for as many sellers as possible.
Love that, the e-commerce brand and globalizing it and making it, a lot of entrepreneurs out there who didn't think they would get as big as they are, and exiting businesses and also building just faster than ever that they've dreamed possible. So that's a really cool story. But thanks for sharing your story and sharing some of your insights as fellow data nerd. I would say that, hey, I'm
Absolutely.
that. So thanks so much for hopping on the Global Spin podcast today.
Thanks, Ryan. If you ever want to nerd out in the future, you know where to find me.
Hey,
Appreciate
yeah, I'm
it.
gonna hit you up on LinkedIn. Don't you worry. So thanks a lot for joining us today. And thank you
Awesome.
everyone for coming on the Global Spin podcast. We hope you found today's episode very helpful. If you did, click on the thumbs up on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. As always, you can follow me on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you want to find us. We're posting new content and educational pieces about global expansion, building your brand. You know what we're known for here at Frisbi. But thank you to the team at Frisbi for helping sellers grow their brand internationally, the team at Teikametrics and Ben Ray for hopping on as our guest today. If you guys enjoyed it, again, give us a thumbs up, share it with your community, say, hey, what part you liked, what you didn't like. We're all about criticism over here. So if you have good or negative thoughts, just let us know so we can always improve. That's what we're all about. So I'm Ryan Cramer. Thanks for hopping in my corner of the internet. We'll catch you guys next time on another episode. Take care.